People that work on movie sets, what are the most entitled actors you have ever met? Worth bringing out the best James Corden story again. A nameless person was on a transatlantic flight in business class and was a little starstruck to see Corden boarding. He acted aloof, wearing headphones and trying his best to remain anonymous, but not being outright shitty. Then came the kicker. Onto the plane came a struggling woman with a small baby. She set down her things in the seat opposite Corden, and the viewer waited to see if he'd bristle at the idea of being next to a, probably loud, baby all flight. He said nothing and studiously went about reading some script or the other. Disappointed in not seeing him displaying diva tendencies, they soon lost interest. Throughout the flight the woman struggled with the unsettled baby, constantly picking it up when it started crying, hushing and soothing. Still Corden didn't flip. He just turned his headphones up and did his best to ignore the disturbance. After landing, the harried mother was packing all her stuff away as Corden waited patiently to disembark. Finally the snap happened when the woman dropped one of the many bags all mothers have to carry when traveling. Turning to him she said, "At least can you take our daughter for a minute while I sort all this out?" I used to work in the industry for a while. Asked some colleagues about the worst people they've worked with. More than one said Steven Seagal was a grade A douchebag. Another said Mike Myers was a nasty piece of work. From what I hear, Myers is really hard to work with because he's an extreme perfectionist and wants everything done the way he has it in his mind. Apparently he re-recorded his entire performance on Shrek because he wasn't happy with the voice. It was a good decision, because Shrek's voice is pretty iconic at this point, but still a pretty massive change to demand. Mike Myers puts out some fantastic work. I think his decision is correct if you are only looking at quality of work and not quality of life. Stanley Kubrick was famously just as bad on the director side of things. As the old joke goes, NASA wanted to fake a moon landing and hired Stanley Kubrick to do it, but he was such a perfectionist he demanded they actually film it on the moon. That's kind of ironic considering how partial Kubrick was to using studio sets over site locations. IRC he tried to shoot one of his movies entirely indoors, which makes sense considering he was such a perfectionist he'd prefer working in an environment under his complete control. I used to work in the film and TV industry. Tyra Banks legitimately will fire some people if they look her in the eye when passing in the hallway, mostly interns. Ugh. On the plus side, Tom Hanks and David Tennant are genuinely amazing. And Eric Dane, good guy. Once an actress yelled at one of our new writers, and Eric heard about it. He later came by to apologize publicly in front of the whole cast and crew, even though it wasn't his doing. Love that guy. And someone on the crew later tried to poison that actress, so. I love how no one even acknowledged the whole poison thing. I realize this isn't movie sets, but I worked the front desk at the most upscale hotel in the city, so I came in contact with a lot of famous people, mostly musicians. We have a giant yearly concert in the hotel's gardens every year. But here's a list of the coolest and worst I've encountered, by far more cool than awful. Journey, by far the biggest divas, specifically the guitarist. They came into the hotel at 3 a.m. and he got the biggest suite in the hotel, the one the Prime Minister and the Queen have stayed in. And he stormed down and said it wasn't big enough and he wants a bigger room. After explaining to him that this was the biggest room, he threw a fit and demanded we build him a bigger room or knock down some walls. Cool guy. Slayer, pretty grumpy. When I told them how much I loved their music growing up, Carrie King just scoffed at me. Demi Lovato walked into the hotel and said, "Oh, that I'm not staying here," and slept in her tour bus. Martin Sheen, really reserved, tried to avoid any contact with others. Motley Crue, weirdly very nice and well behaved. Machine Gun Kelly, prick, partied all night and caused a bunch of damage. Tech 9, really nice, stopped to talk to all the staff. Paul Martin, former Prime Minister of Canada. He was cool, I guess. He shook my hand and that's about it. Justin Trudeau, current Prime Minister, really nice, nothing much else to say. Queen, Brian May was cool as shit. He talked to me for a while and told me some old Queen stories. Adam Lambert was a bitch. Robert Englund, super duper cool. I told him Freddy Krueger was the only thing that ever gave me a nightmare as a kid, and he said, "Well, looks like I finally caught ya." In his Freddy voice, got a pic with him choking me. Macy Gray, amazingly friendly, talked to me for a good half hour just shooting the shit, called me a cool cat and gave me $100 tip. Dallas Green, another great guy, he was super busy but I told him how much Alexis on Fire meant to me. So he talked with me for a bit and signed some stuff. Ron McLean, Hockey Night in Canada, another great guy, just made fun of Don Cherry. Magic Johnson, absolute sweetheart. I still can't believe I met him. There's lots more but that's all I can think of right now. I was playing a background doctor on an ER-type drama a couple years ago. While rehearsing a scene, one of the actresses said to the performer next to me, "Tell him he can't stand there." She was referring to me. I adjusted my position and asked, "Is he okay?" She said, again to the actor next to me, "Tell him I don't care, just stay out of my way." I asked, "Is there some reason you are not addressing me directly?" and she turned around and walked away. A few minutes late the scene was shot without further incident. I have no idea who this actress is. She wasn't one of the stars. Bam Margera used to frequent a mall where I was managing a store. He was always cool and never seemed pretentious. One afternoon he came in with some friends, and they were all obviously either high, drunk, or both. They were in my store, making a scene, being obnoxious, and started throwing around merchandise. Before I could say anything to them, Bam turned around and yelled for them to stop acting like children and to put everything back where they got it. Like good little peons, they did what they were told. He just looked at me and with a long, and tired, look on his face told me he was sorry about them. So, yeah, Bam seems to be a good guy. Many years ago I worked at OOB in Philly. We had a reservation for Don King one night but he and his large party didn't show. So about 15 minutes past close he calls and says he is running late but will be there in a few minutes. Owner asks essential staff to stay and about an hour later King and his party arrive. His party eats and drinks until after midnight but when presented with the check King says one of his companions was unhappy with the food. The waiter offers to take it off the bill. King makes snarky remark like, "Of course you will." He ends up leaving no tip on a nearly $2,000 bill while making staff work an extra 3 hours. My sister is a writer and has met and worked with lots of people in Hollywood. I asked her who the nicest celebrity she ever met was and she said without hesitation, Luke Perry. Have not worked on a movie set, but worked for a cleaning company that was hired by production companies that came to the area to film, Alberta, Canada. We would take care of the homes of some celebs. Tom Hardy was lovely. Very down to earth and friendly. Would walk by us in the house and always greet us and often talk about the weather and other mundane things. Small talk. His whole entourage was friendly. It was actually quite an enjoyable job, good pay, easy work, nice environment etc. When we cleaned Leonardo DiCaprio's place, we were specifically told not to talk or look at him by the contact person my boss had. We wouldn't have spoken unless spoken to first, but the specific request for it made us uncomfortable. One time, one of my co-workers had a close encounter with Leo in his bathroom. She was cleaning while he was coming in. She jumped, apologized, and said, "I'll get out of your way." She quickly gathered up all her cleaning stuff and hurried out. He was totally silent and turned his head away from her. It was weird. And just a quick side note, we had a specific way we'd clean so to not encroach on anyone needing the bathroom. Leo's bedroom and bathroom were done when we certain he was up and about or out of the house and we always went as fast as we could. The previous cleaning company that was there before us was fired because one of the workers said "How are you" or something like that to Leo. That prior knowledge also made it harder working there. Oddly enough though, Leo's entourage had a strange curiosity with us that felt uncomfortable in the opposite sense. Almost like they'd never seen people before lol. Third hand here so who knows. But a person I know has worked with Kevin Smith. During the filming of Live Free or Die Hard they were shooting Kevin's scenes. I guess the call time was 7 a.m. Everyone is ready, lights on, sound check, yada yada. No Bruce Willis. Turns out he was at a nearby bar having mimosas. The aide that went to get him was told "I'm John McElcain. What are they gonna do? Fire me?" Or something to that effect. To Kevin's estimation $90,000-ish were wasted in pay, rental fees, and whatnot waiting on Bruce to be ready to go. I was worried you were gonna say something bad about Kevin Smith cause he seems like a super cool dude in all the interviews I've seen of him.